If you've never been to Hawaii, sorting out the different islands can be kind of confusing. So I'm gonna start by just giving a very brief overview of what I know about the different ones, having been there. And then I will share more details about the 3 islands that I have been to myself and some of our favorite places on each island, as well as some of the surprises, both good and bad. Okay, so first, explaining the islands. The big island is called Hawaii. So that's why, one reason that it's confusing. It is a very large island and it's called Hawaii, and so some people call it the Big Island. And that really confused me at first. And so this island has Kona and a volcano that actually has lava flow sometimes. So I think that might be the only one that has that. Like it has had lava flowing this year. But of course, when I went, it wasn't. So whatever, I didn't get to see it, but just so you know. And that's the island that my brother lives on. So I probably know a little more about it, but it is so big that I feel like there's so much we still did not see. And from the big island of Hawaii, you can see Maui, which it's, kind of fun to be able to see another really large island. But we also went to Kauai, which is kind of more of the rainy island, and it has the lush vegetation, but it is like pretty much everything is 2 hours from the airport. So even though we were only there for 4 days, we felt like we saw the whole island kind of. And of course, we could go and stay longer and still have fun, but that was plenty. We didn't feel like we missed out or like we have to go back. And then my first trip to Hawaii was actually just an overnight trip, and it was to fly with my brother and stay overnight while he was on his way to Australia. And that was his first time flying, so I went with him, and then he flew on the next day and I stayed just until I had like an evening flight. So I felt like we packed in, a pretty good amount for staying only one night. Like we went to the grocery store. That's probably because we're broke, but we got some snacks, a pineapple, and we were just like in an apartment, and we were able to walk to the grocery store and walk to Waikiki. And so this one is very much like built up, a lot more of a city, but there was still the beach, and it was still beautiful, and it was still an amazing time. I was still glad I went. We saw the sunset, and I actually watched the sunset the next day as well before taking an Uber back to the airport. And then that was my first flight by myself. I was flying back from Hawaii. Oahu is also where Pearl Harbor is, but I did not go there. But if I went back, I would love to visit. And so that was in June, and then we also visited this past year in June. And so that's kind of the time of year that I'm talking about. But my brother moved there in January to the Big Island. And so he told, some of the things like the differences between the time of year. Basically how like the weather is pretty much the same. Even the sunrise and sunset time is pretty much the same. I think that's partly because they don't do daylight saving, like they don't do the time change. Okay, so I haven't been to Maui, but I will link to my friend's video of when she visited. And my brother did say he liked it and that I would probably like it, but I thought I would like Kauai more than Maui. And so that's kind of what we did. And we did like it. So I don't know how to compare it to Maui, but I do feel like Kauai was more of like small town and not as touristy, maybe. So Hawaii can be very expensive. So that's one thing to consider. So I will say we went to the grocery store with my brother. He did take us to the Safeway, which is the more expensive one there. But I was like, I'll just get like a bag salad, like a Caesar salad in a bag that has everything included in it. And I live in California right now, so being in Hawaii wasn't as big of a shock, but I saw that these bags of salads were $11 there, and I was like, oh, I think they're only like $5 where we are. And I got back here and they are only $3 here. So that was the biggest like crazy price difference to me. So it's so weird. I'm from Georgia, and when I was a nanny, I took the kids with me to my hometown. And we went to the lake because it was like some holiday or something. And we were driving back over the bridge around sunset. And so of course, I mean, it was beautiful, but it was just the little lake I grew up near. And not like a touristy, like super developed lake. So we passed that at sunset, and he was like, I think he was like 6, and he was like, that looks like our book at home. Well, their tabletop book at home was of freaking Hawaii. And so I was like, well, I just grew up in this beautiful place. I thought that was really cute, but also like a really good perspective. You know, I could still dream of going to Hawaii, but now I have, and I will say it is like my small town in some ways, at least some parts of it. Like there's even like red clay like in Georgia, and that was just so insane to me. I mean, you know, when you're looking at these travel brochures or something, you're seeing all the best and the beautiful and the beach and that kind of thing. But when you're there, it's like, oh, like, yeah, there's a Walmart. There's like, I don't know, these industrial buildings or something. Or like, oh, there's this long road of nothing, just like trees or dirt. There are freaking cows. I'm like, okay, maybe I have never been jealous of a cow before, but I might be right now because they have an amazing view and look where they live. I also wanted to go ahead and mention that all of the video footage is from me and while I was there, so that you know exactly what it looks like. I tried to match those up to the things that I'm talking about at the moment. And I'm also going to add timestamps here so that if you are only interested in details about the island of Kauai or the Big Island, you can just go straight to those if you know you're not going to visit the other one. Also, before I forget, there were a lot of chickens on Kauai. It was crazy. And then there were a lot of goats on the Big Island, just like wild goats and wild chickens. And there aren't as many wild chickens on the Big Island because there are weasels there. I was prepared for everyone to say aloha all the time, but I was surprised how much people were saying mahalo, and I had never heard that. And of course, it means thank you, but I just loved that so much. Kauai is the one that has like a really good helicopter tour, I've been told. One other thing we found out when we were there is about the island Niihau. I'm not sure how you say it, but I bought this book because I was so intrigued by it. Okay, in the book, I just read about a place called Barking Sands Beach on Kauai, and we did not go because we did not know about it. So I'm telling you, so you can try it. If you go to Kauai, look that up, because apparently when you move the sand, or even if you put it in a bag and shake it, the sand sounds like dogs barking. And she said in the book in like the 1800s that scientists would come and study it and could not figure out why that happens. And I thought it was cool that it's still there and you can still hear it. This book is about the governess of that family. They bought the island, and that family still owns it now, but that was years ago. So like the original buyer is not still there, but anyway, it's kind of like almost like a secretive thing. They call it the Forbidden Island because basically you can't go there unless you're invited, or you know, very rare, few people who maybe work there or have whatever connections. So anyway, it's very interesting. Like you have to follow their rules and stuff, which I mean, makes sense. And then also we used some points to get a convertible while we were on Kauai, and that was an interesting experience because one, we landed in the rain and we were like, oh my goodness, is it going to be like this the whole time? But even the first day, like, we were able to put the top down. It stopped after a while. And plus, usually when you're on the coast, like at the beach, it's usually not raining. It's just when you're kind of more inward. And so anyway, we got that, which was a lot of fun, but we had to figure out how to get that down and everything. We had to like look up a video. And then we offered to let my brother stay with us on that island because he had never been, and we were staying with him on his island. So he came a couple of days after us, and when we picked him up in the convertible, I realized, like, okay, unless you have tiny children or no one else, if it's just 2 people, then a convertible is good. But with 3 adults, I was so scrunched, and I'm like 5'3". Like, I'm not that large of a person, and it was very uncomfortable. Also because when I was sitting in the front, I'm like, oh, this is so quiet. Like, this is really nice. I thought it was gonna be so loud from the wind, but they do a really good job with that. But not for the people sitting in the back. So keep that in mind. But it was a fun experience and something we have never done and probably will never do again. So I was glad we did that. But, you know, there's also not a huge trunk for everyone's stuff. But we didn't have problems with anything blowing out of the vehicle, but we did like keep things in zipped bags or like down in the floor. We were aware, and so that helped. And there are rocks, a lot of rocks at the beaches in Hawaii, and like in the water. The waves can push you against them if you're not careful and aware. It's not like super crazy dangerous, but just pay attention and be aware of that. And, you know, if other people are swimming out there, then you're usually fine to also swim there. And I think the most dangerous beaches do have people like lifeguards and people saying, move away from the rocks or whatever. Or there will be like no one there, and you're like, oh, why not? And then there's a sign like, oh, people have died here. So that was on Kauai. It was just like this empty beach, and I loved it. I'm like, it's okay, I don't have to get in the water, but just being on the sand in this empty, almost completely empty beach. We saw a dog, and then a few people came after us. But anyway, that was so cool. In Kauai, I feel like we went to like 10 different beaches, and they were all different, but all beautiful and nice. I'll try to look up the names of the beaches we went to on Kauai, but also Waimea Canyon was really nice and pretty. It was amazing. So there are some stops where you can just look out for free, but there's also one that you have to pay like, I think $10 a car plus $5 a person, unless you live on Hawaii. So my brother got to go free, and that covered the cost from our car as well. My brother being with us. So I don't know, I might just drive up there if I were you and just stop at some of the free lookouts. Like, it was so pretty. But the other lookout was nice too, but we only stayed, I mean, you know, it's like, okay, you can only stay there so long without getting bored. Like, it's weird to just like sit there and read or journal, kind of. I don't know, that's probably just because I was with my brother and husband. If they weren't there, I probably would have just found a nice spot and sat down and stayed for a while. But on Kauai, we also ate at this amazing food truck called Shaka Burgers, and it's by a sushi food truck. But I didn't like that as much, but everyone else was eating there more than at the burger place. Maybe the people who got burgers just left though and didn't eat at the little tables and shelter, but that was cute and nice because it did rain the first day when we ate there. And we actually liked it so much though that we went back with my brother when he was there with us. We stayed at an Airbnb that was on the beach, so that was nice because my brother on the Big Island does not live, like, you can technically walk to the beach, but it's like an hour walk, you know, or more. Maybe an hour going down, like an hour and a half coming back up. So it was nice to just be like a 2-minute walk from the beach for a while we were there. But for 4 days we paid over $1,000, and that was probably also one of the lower options because we're kind of cheap. But I'll try to link to that because it was It was a nice area. And you could watch people surf. It really made me want to learn to surf. And then I was like, I saw someone on a stand-up paddleboard, and I was like, oh, that's my entryway into surfing, or I can just paddleboard surf and never go to the next level. Like, it's fine. So I actually do want to try that in the future still. But I'm going to try it at a beach in North Carolina where I normally go, and those are the perfect waves for beginning. See, I had always thought it's like, no, you need to go to Hawaii to learn to surf. But those are the big, like, more dangerous waves. That's when you, like, already know how to surf. I mean, there are some places, but my brother did say a lot of the places are crowded, at least on the Big Island, that are safe enough to learn to surf because lots of people are there wanting to learn. But Kauai, I think he thought it would be easier to learn there. Like, there were more places that weren't so crowded already. One last thing about Kauai is that their airport has a TSA thing, and they hand you a laminated card, and it tells you all the benefits of like having TSA pre-check. So we're like, okay. So I put it in my basket to go through security, and then they're like, take your shoes off. And I'm like, what? And they're like, do you have TSA pre-check? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, where's your card? So on the card, somewhere it says, keep this card and show it to the security person. And so I had to go and get mine out of there. So in case you're like me and not going to read like 12 lines of writing on this card that you think you already know what it's about, then there you go. But I did love the airports there. And this is kind of a good transition to the Big Island because it is basically an outdoor airport. So yes, there are indoor bathrooms and stuff like that, but you are sitting and waiting for your flight outside. And when you land, you're just outside. I love it so much. And the weather's perfect. So I didn't really want to share my favorite spot on the Big Island because I'm selfish like that. I wanted to keep it for myself. But I realized most of you aren't even going to go to Hawaii or the Big Island of Hawaii. And then another percentage of you are only going to be there for a few days. And they also, at the beach that I'm talking about, they have a limit. So, and they also don't have very much parking. So if you do manage to somehow get there, then, you know, I shouldn't complain about that. So, and it may not even be as great all the time, although I just feel like it is. Like, we went there like 3 times because I just loved it so much. And we were only there for a week. I always say the name wrong. I'll have to look it up, but I think it's Minini Beach. Oh, that's another thing about Hawaii. I can't pronounce anything, and you can't just be like, oh, the one that starts with a K, because like half of them start with a K. And so I felt like quite an idiot a lot of the time. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. I don't know where we're going. Like, this is ridiculous. But it's funny because like the town where my brother lives is called Captain Cook. I'm like, oh, that one I got. So that one's kind of easy. But like some of the road signs and names and stuff. But I will tell you some other places as well that I loved. I loved eating in Hawaii because in California it's like, okay, maybe we just go to the wrong places. It's so hit or miss. Like, there are so many options and you just don't know. And you don't always love it. It's not always worth the money. But oh my goodness, in Hawaii, it's like so good. We had basically anything that says shaka in the name of the restaurant. I feel like that was good. And by anything, I mean like 2 or 3 places we went, but still. So Shaka Tacos was really awesome. And they do have like a little bar where you can overlook the water. You're like way up above the ocean. It's not like down on there. And I will have to list all of the places specifically that I went and loved, so that makes it easier for you and for me in case I forget anything. But Shaka Tacos was very good, and I think I got a taco salad there, and it was so good. But their mango sauce is so good. It has like just enough kick, and also the sweetness of like the mango. So that's very good. And then we went to a pizza place. I'll have to look up the name of that. Okay, so anyway, the Manini Beach, whatever the name of that is, you can take a hammock, and people would have their hammock between two coconut trees, and that looked really nice. It's like a park. It's very, very small, but it's like a grassy park and some picnic tables and trees. And then there's like the water and a little area that you can get in. And it is like spring fed at the beginning, and it is cold water. But then once you get past that, you're like, oh, okay. So it warms up. But a lot of times kids are playing right there, especially if you go on a weekend, I guess. And so you kind of have to go past them, and they may be, you know, kind of splashing or jumping in the water. But once you get past them, you can see the fish. Like, oh my goodness, definitely take goggles. I just take goggles. Other people, like my brother and husband, like to have the snorkel, but I'm like, I don't care. I can just hold my breath. I just don't like having to fool with the rest of that. So I was obsessed immediately. My brother did say that that's the clearest he had seen the water, but then even the next 2 times when we went back, it was sometimes even clearer than that. So it may not be that clear when you go, but you still, like, we saw so many cute fish. I really want, like, I wish I could just take pictures underwater. They were so adorable. Like, what is it, Gil from Finding Nemo, and then just like the yellowfish. We saw like a stick fish. My husband swears he saw a barracuda, and that freaked me out, but he also was going like way far and like to the edges and to these really deep parts, and I was like, this is creepy, no thank you. So there is a person at the entrance that there's a sign you need to read, and then also they can tell you where to get in and everything and all the different things about the park. So that's helpful. And there's also a little pathway where you can go and watch the sunset with the rocks and everything. There are even like chairs sitting out there that you can use if they're not taken. But you do need shoes for that part, because I go barefoot a lot and I couldn't walk out there because there was like tiny rocks and it was very painful. So there is also a gelato place in or near Captain Cook. So I'll have to look that up and tell you the right one, but it's cute inside. This did not feel like a super touristy area, but it was like cute like a touristy area. Their gelato. I've had gelato before and been so disappointed, like it's not even worth eating. And this place though was very good and very worth it. They also let you get samples, so I would just do that. But I was surprised how much I liked the fruit one, because I kind of wanted to try like the peanut butter chocolate one or something, but we did get the salted caramel and the Oreo based on my brother's suggestion, but I actually liked the fruity one better. And he did recommend that one, but he says it's not his favorite, but other people like it. That is like way too much about ice cream on a video about Hawaii, but sorry. These are the kind of details I like, because it's like, I'm only gonna go once or twice probably. My brother and I went for a very expensive meal, and they like have a valet, so you need to make sure you have money to tip them, like cash, and then you do get to go eat out on the beach, you know, with the view of the sunset. And we got there like right when they opened, I think at 5 o'clock or something, and I definitely needed sunglasses and did not have them. So do take that. Well, that was the first time I had oysters that I actually liked. I am not about just like plain oysters where they just taste like salt and the ocean, and no. So that was very good, because I thought I just didn't like oysters. I have had oysters and stuffing and that was fine. But anyway, oh, so we had also a crazy fancy dessert. I would personally say I don't love getting my calories from drinks, so I would have preferred to just have the dessert instead of getting a drink as well. But the oyster was worth it. It was like $7 an oyster, but that was still worth it. And then also, I think their menu changes somewhat, but some are the same. I was not impressed. I need to look at the menu. The place is called Maunalani or something. I will spell it because, like I said, I can't pronounce anything. Okay. There was this beef foie gras thing, and the waiter really recommended that, even though we were like, we don't eat foie gras. Foie gras. Oh my God, I can't say that either. So, you know, just speaking anything's difficult. But it was so good. And I think it was like mostly beef, but I could be wrong. But that was amazing. I was so glad he suggested it as far as the taste, and definitely worth the money. But he was even like, yeah, I know that can be controversial food. The Japanese curry was very good. Oh, and the pull-apart bread was also really good, even though it was so simple. And at first I was like, this is not worth it. But then I kept eating it and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like layers of flavor, like, and it's bread. I don't understand. I'm not a bread person, but that was really good. And, you know, my brother had been before, so he was able to recommend that. And then I got the ube cheesecake, which is one that our waiter recommended as well. My brother loves the chocolate banana mousse, I guess, thing, ice cream, but I didn't like it. I'm like, I don't like banana flavored things really. So he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm very happy with my ube cheesecake. And plus it's purple, so I don't know, that's kind of fun. There was something we got though that I was not impressed with, but I don't think I have a picture of it. It was just like the catch of the day. But anyway, that was my perfect meal. I did get some kind of lemonade or something, but yeah, that was not worth it. But it was a pretty color drink, if you care about that. On the Big Island, we did go to a very popular beach, but that was not, we went to a couple of popular, larger beaches, but they did feel touristy and I did not love that. Those seemed better for people with kids, and like, you know, they had bathrooms and probably lifeguards, at least at some of them. But we just like kind of went and left from those. And there was also a hike down to a similar area at Captain Cook, and it has like a marker and a little memorial for Captain Cook at that area. And so a lot of people hiked that, but warnings, we were about to die because we have been living in the desert for a year, and then we went to Hawaii where it's a lot of humidity, so that's part of it, I think. But you are going just basically straight up. It's not like super steep, but it's just a long way of climbing. And so thankfully we went in the morning, but we probably should have gone even earlier in the morning. But we also didn't swim when we went down there. So if you did go down there and swam, then you would cool off and be a lot cooler on your hike because you're still wet. Whereas we were just dying. So I think we were scaring the families who were coming down at that time of day. And we also were going back up while there was cloud coverage. So we were lucky for that. So definitely be careful of that. But I'll try to put the name of the hike either on the screen or in the description so that you have that information. I'll probably make a blog post, just that's easier to share and view and refer back to. We also paid to go on to swim with the manta rays, and my brother was like so excited about it for us. Like we just went without him, but he had been multiple times. I think he went in the off season though, because we went, it was crazy crowded. People were loud and moving so much that the manta rays did not even come close to us, because he had them like you can't reach out and touch the manta rays, but if they touch you, then that's okay. And so they like rubbed against his stomach and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But they definitely did not do that for us. But we did benefit because there was a professional underwater photographer. And so he took some pictures of the manta rays that we actually saw. So that was cool. And he sent those to us for free. So that kind of made it worth it, but it was also more expensive at the time of year that we went than when he went. So something to consider, but I'll tell you, I'll link to the one that he really liked because he had gone on multiple tours, and this is the one he liked, and also that photographer really liked the crew of this boat or whatever. So it might be busier in June and not as crazy, but okay, I will say this. We also went at an earlier time in the day, I think because they did like 2 tours of it, or because it was a busy time of year, I don't know. But like, cause they offered like a 9:30 at night one, like that's when it started. And I'm like, that is too late for us. But the other option was 5 o'clock. So, and it ends at 8. I think in the slow season, they just do maybe just 1 tour at the best time of the day instead of trying to pack more people in. So anyway, it was fine. One lady was sick. I was not, and I had been sick on a deep sea fishing thing, like threw up, but I was fine on this one. And I didn't take medicine either time. But they said you can get in the water like once we got there, and they're like, we're just kind of waiting for sunset, which that was another complaint of mine. I'm like, I want to watch the sunset at sunset. But instead we were like staring at these manta rays that we had already been looking at for like an hour. So I kept popping my head up and being like, ooh, that's so pretty. And then so they're like, you can get in, you know, while we're here, but no one was getting in. They're like, oh, but it's gonna get cold. Like if you get cold in a movie theater, then you'll probably be cold. And so you might not want to get in right away. And I'm like, okay, but I want to get in. Like I love swimming. And so we did have to stay sort of close to the boat, which was kind of stressful because like the current was taking you unless, I mean, you know, very slowly, but unless you were like really fighting against it and paying attention, like you're underwater and you're seeing cool stuff. So you're not really trying to, and you can't hear when you're underwater. So that was kind of weird, but anyway. So I got in, I was the first person to get in. They have you in these like dry suits or wetsuits. Sorry, I used a dry suit before, so I sometimes get those confused. So we were in a wetsuit, but like they were like shorts. But anyway, I was getting too hot in the water. I was like swimming around, but I also wanted to keep it on because, you know, as it got later, I figured it would get colder, which it did, but I was still not ever like too super cold. I only got cold because we were trying to be still. It was also kind of like, I didn't know the situation. Like, are we going to have access to a bathroom, like a place to change? Which we basically didn't really. I mean, there is a bathroom on there, but it's kind of weird to use and also not really for like a changing room. It's just like to go to the bathroom. So then someone else got in and I was looking and like saw my first manta ray, and like they're huge. It was so cool. And then the other person bumped into me and it scared me so much because I had just seen the manta ray and I was like, wait, is there another one? But no, just a person. And so then a lot of people started getting in because they realized like we could already see them. And I was so glad. I'm like, that was better than waiting until it was dark. I don't know. We probably saw less than 10 the whole time. Whereas my brother was saying how they just saw like, I don't know, like it seemed like tons and tons. Anyway, so it could be a different experience, but either way, like it was nice. And they gave like hot chocolate afterwards, which was nice. They kind of rinse you off. We also tried to go see a waterfall with my brother, and then we drove 2.5 hours and it was closed because they were paving the road to it. She's like, at 5 o'clock we're leaving if y'all want to come back. I'm like, no, we don't. We want to drive 2.5 hours back home to go to bed. Oh, on the Big Island there are these crazy sounding frogs. I recorded it because it was so crazy, and my brother was like, oh yeah, I'm used to it now, but it was kind of crazy. He does not have air conditioning, so we sleep with the windows open. Like that was awesome. I loved it. We also like to sleep in the cold, like 68 degrees, and it wasn't too hot for us. We also went to the southernmost point in the United States, which is on the Big Island. There are like little cliffs you can jump off of, but no one was doing that when we went. I don't think I would have done it anyway, but my brother was gonna, but he did it later when his friends visited, so that was good. And then we went to like a green sand beach, but I think that's like a stretch. The sand was not really green, but I guess it was kind of cool. But it was a neat little spot, but it was more crowded than I thought, and like kind of a weird setup. Like we walked both ways, which again was kind of annoying because they walk so much faster than me, and then they're like, hurry up and whatever. Anyway, I was sore the next day. I seriously ran half of it because of them. I'm like, I just want to enjoy this. It was prettier to me on the walk there than at the actual beach. But so there are these people who will drive you, but it seems like a very uncomfortable drive, and you have to pay like $20 or something. You're like standing in the back of this vehicle with a bunch of strangers and maybe whoever's with you. And then it's like very slow because it's a very bumpy road. And so I was glad we did walk, but definitely take water and like a hat and sunscreen and stuff. But then you like climb down to get to the beach, and it's like a little cove, kind of, not cove, but anyway, it's kind of cool. It was an adventure more than just like a relaxing time at the beach. So that was why it was nice to just have a place on the beach so I could go sit and read and my husband can do something else. But we also did get in the water and the waves were nice. I hope this video and the blog post that goes along with it helps you have a wonderful trip to Hawaii. What is it called? It's like ice cream, but not ice cream. Is it Italian? What's the Italian ice cream? Gelato. It is. Okay.